Some jobs seem normal on the surface, stocking shelves, scanning items, helping customers. But when you work the graveyard shift at Walmart, when the lights hum a little too loud and the aisles stretch a little too long, you realize that normal is just a mask. And sometimes that mask slips. This is the story of the night I realized I wasn't alone in that store and that whatever was watching me wasn't human. I used to work overnight at a Walmart on the outskirts of a small Midwestern town. The kind of place where nothing ever happens, where the biggest excitement is a Friday night high school football game. I'd taken the night shift because it paid a little more. And honestly, I preferred the quiet. No Karens screaming about expired coupons. No screaming kids knocking over displays. Just me, a couple of other stalkers, and the hum of industrial refrigerators. Most nights followed the same routine. I'd clock in at 10 p.m., grab my scanner and pallet jack, and start restocking shelves in the grocery section. We'd play music through our phones, joke around on the walkies, and kill time until 7 a.m. when the morning crew arrived. It was boring, monotonous work, but it was safe. Or at least, I thought it was. It was a Tuesday night, around 2 a.m., when I first saw him. I was restocking cereal boxes in aisle 12, my back turned to the main aisle, when I felt that prickling sensation on the back of your neck, the one that tells you someone's watching. I turned around, and there he was, a man standing at the far end of the aisle, maybe 50 feet away. He was wearing a stained brown jacket, jeans, and a baseball cap pulled low over his face. He wasn't moving. He was just staring at me. I figured he was a customer, maybe homeless, looking for somewhere warm to kill a few hours. We got people like that sometimes. I gave him a polite nod and went back to stocking, but the feeling didn't go away. I glanced over my shoulder. He was still there, same position, same blank stare. I felt my stomach tighten, but I told myself I was being paranoid. I grabbed my pallet jack and moved to aisle 15, putting some distance between us. 20 minutes later, I was shelving canned goods when I saw him again. Same man, same jacket, standing at the end of aisle 15, staring. My heart started to pound. How had he gotten there without me noticing? I hadn't heard footsteps, no cartwheels, nothing. I keyed my walkie. Hey, anyone else seeing a guy in a brown jacket wandering around? Static. Then my coworker Jake's voice crackled through. Nah, man, store's been empty for the last hour. Why? I looked up. The man was gone. I exhaled, tried to shake it off. Maybe I was just tired. I decided to take a break, headed toward the security office in the back. Our store had a small room with monitors, showing feeds from a dozen cameras scattered throughout the store. I peeked inside. Our overnight security guard, Dennis, was asleep in his chair, snoring softly. Typical. I glanced at the monitors, and my blood turned to ice. On the screen showing aisle 12, I could see myself from earlier, stocking shelves, and there, in the corner of the frame, partially obscured by a display, was the man in the brown jacket. But here's the thing, he wasn't just standing there. He was following me. The timestamp showed 1:47 a.m. I watched as past me moved to another section, and the man moved with me, staying just far enough back that I wouldn't notice unless I turned around quickly. I rewound the footage. He'd been following me for over 30 minutes, always staying in my blind spot, always just out of direct view. My hands started shaking. I fast-forwarded to the current time, 2:34 a.m. The monitor flickered, and there he was, standing in aisle 9, right where I'd been 3 minutes ago. I spun around, my heart hammering. The office door was open. The hallway was empty, but I could hear something now, footsteps, slow, deliberate, echoing from somewhere deep in the store. I grabbed my walkie again. Dennis, wake up. We need to check something. No response. I shook him, but he didn't stir. It was like he was drugged. The footsteps were getting closer. I left the office and moved quickly toward the front of the store, my breath coming in short gasps. The lights above me started to flicker, one by one, like something was moving through the store, killing the lights as it passed. I broke into a run, my shoes squeaking on the polished floor. I turned down aisle 3, then aisle 5. But something was wrong. Every aisle I turned down felt longer than it should be, stretching into shadow, the end impossibly far away. I could still hear the footsteps behind me, matching my pace, never speeding up, never slowing down. I didn't dare look back. My walkie crackled with static, and then I heard a voice. Low, distorted, barely human. "Stop running." I screamed and sprinted toward the front entrance, my legs burning. The automatic doors came into view, glowing like a beacon. I slammed into them, and they slid open. I stumbled out into the parking lot, gasping, my whole body shaking. I turned around. The man was standing in the middle of the store, directly under the flickering light near the checkout lanes. His head was tilted at an unnatural angle, almost 90 degrees, and even from that distance, I could see his eyes empty, black, reflecting nothing. I didn't go back inside. I sat in my car until sunrise, until Jake and the morning manager arrived. I told them everything, but they just exchanged glances. They checked the cameras. According to the footage, I'd been alone the entire night. There was no man in a brown jacket. No one following me. Just me, walking through empty aisles, talking to myself on the walkie. But I know what I saw. I quit that day. Didn't even pick up my last paycheck. A week later, I heard from Jake that another night shift worker had reported the same thing. A man in a brown jacket, following them, appearing on the cameras, but never in person. Management dismissed it as stress, overactive imaginations. But Jake told me something else. He said he went back through the archived footage, going back months, and he found him. The man in the brown jacket, always there, always following someone, always watching. Some places hold on to things, memories, echoes, maybe even something darker. I don't know what that man was or why he was there, but I know he wasn't alive, and I know he's still there, walking those aisles, waiting for the next person to notice him. If you ever work a night shift at Walmart and you see someone watching you from the end of an aisle, don't look twice, just leave, because some things aren't meant to be seen. Most of us have heard stories about haunted places, old houses, abandoned hospitals, cemeteries at midnight. But sometimes, the scariest places are the ones we visit every day, brightly lit, filled with people. Normal. Until they're not. This is the story of a Walmart bathroom, a little girl who never left, and the sound that still haunts me. I'm not someone who believes in ghosts. Or at least, I wasn't. I'm a practical person. I troubleshoot problems for a living. I don't scare easily. And I certainly don't believe in paranormal nonsense. But what happened to me one night at Walmart changed all of that. It was a Thursday evening, around 10 p.m. I'd just gotten off work and realized I needed a few things. Milk, bread, the usual. I stopped at the Walmart near my apartment, one of those 24-hour locations that always has a weird vibe late at night. You know the type: fluorescent lights buzzing, a handful of tired employees shuffling around, and a few random shoppers who look like they haven't slept in days. I grabbed a cart and made my way through the store, picking up what I needed. About halfway through my trip, I realized I needed to use the restroom. I headed toward the back of the store, past the electronics section and the dimly lit alcove where they keep the employee break room. The bathroom was at the very end of a long hallway, and as I pushed open the door, I immediately felt off. The air was colder than it should have been. Not freezing, but noticeably cooler than the rest of the store. And there was a smell faint, like mildew, and something sweet, like old perfume. I hesitated for a second, but I really had to go, so I stepped inside. That's when I heard it. A soft, childlike crying. It was coming from one of the stalls at the far end. It sounded heartbreaking, the kind of desperate, broken sobbing that makes your chest tighten. I froze, my hand still on the door. "Hello?" I called out. "Are you okay in there? Do you need help?" The crying continued, unchanged. No response, no shift in tone, just that same, endless, sobbing. I walked slowly toward the stall, my footsteps echoing on the tile floor. "Hey, sweetheart, are you lost? Do you need me to find your mom?" Still nothing. I reached the stall door and knocked gently. The crying didn't stop. I tried the handle, it was unlocked. I pushed the door open. The stall was empty. No little girl. No one at all. Just an empty toilet, bare walls, and that cold, stale air. But the crying didn't stop. It was still there, coming from inside that empty stall, as clear as if someone was standing right in front of me. My heart started racing. I backed away, my eyes locked on that open stall door, and that's when it happened. The crying multiplied. It was coming from every stall now. 5 stalls, 5 sources of that same heartbroken sobbing, overlapping, echoing off the tiles, filling the entire bathroom with the sound of a little girl crying for help. My skin crawled. My breath caught in my throat. I turned and ran. I slammed through the bathroom door and didn't stop until I reached the main section of the store. An employee, a young woman restocking shelves, looked up at me with concern. "Are you okay?" she asked. I could barely speak. "The bathroom," I managed to gasp. "There's a kid in there, crying. I think she's lost." The employee's face went pale. She didn't say anything for a moment, just stared at me. Then she said, quietly, "What did it sound like?" "What do you mean? What did it sound like?" "It sounded like a little girl crying." "She's in there right now." The employee bit her lip, then keyed her walkie. "Hey, Mike, can you check the women's restroom in the back?" someone reported. She trailed off, glancing at me. "Just check it, okay?" We waited. A few minutes later, a male voice crackled over the walkie. "Restroom's empty. No one in there." The employee looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes: recognition, maybe even fear. "This has happened before, hasn't it?" I asked. She nodded slowly. "A few times. People hear crying. Sometimes a little girl's voice calling for her mom, but there's never anyone there. Management says it's the pipes, or acoustics, or I don't know, but it's always the same bathroom." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What do you think it is?" She hesitated, then leaned in closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "A long time ago, maybe 10 or 12 years, a little girl went missing from this store. She was with her mom, and then she just wasn't. They searched everywhere: the store, the parking lot, the woods behind the building. They never found her. Some people think she's still here, looking for her mom, stuck." I left the store that night without finishing my shopping. I sat in my car for a while, trying to process what had happened. I went home and did some research. She was right. There were news articles from 2011 about a 7-year-old girl named Emma who vanished from that Walmart. Security footage showed her walking toward the back of the store, toward the bathrooms, and then nothing. She was never seen again. No body, no leads, no closure. I've never gone back to that Walmart, but sometimes, late at night, I still hear it in my head, that soft, desperate crying. And I wonder if Emma is still there, wandering those aisles, calling for her mom, trapped in a place where no one can help her. There are some disappearances that never get solved, some mysteries that leave behind more than just questions. They leave behind echoes, and sometimes those echoes are strong enough that they reach across time, trying to be heard. If you ever hear a child crying in an empty bathroom, ask yourself, is it really empty? Or is someone still there, waiting for help that will never come? We trust the spaces we move through every day. We assume hallways lead somewhere, that aisles have beginnings and ends, that the world follows certain rules. But what happens when those rules break? When a familiar place becomes something else entirely? This is the story of an aisle that shouldn't exist, and the thing that lives inside it. I just moved to a new town for work, a quiet suburb about an hour outside of Chicago. It was the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, where kids ride bikes without helmets, and where the biggest store in town is a Walmart supercenter. I'd been there a few times since moving. Nothing unusual, just grabbing groceries and household supplies. It was a Saturday night, around 9 p.m., and I was looking for cleaning products, bleach, sponges, that kind of thing. The store was moderately busy, a few families, some teenagers loitering near the electronics section. I flagged down an employee, a middle-aged guy with a name tag that said, Ron. "Excuse me, where can I find the cleaning supplies?" He smiled. "Aisle 7, all the way in the back." I thanked him and headed toward the back of the store. I found the aisle easily enough, big yellow sign hanging from the ceiling that read, Aisle 7, cleaning supplies. I grabbed a cart and pushed it into the aisle. At first, everything seemed normal. Shelves stocked with bottles of detergent, mops, brooms, the usual. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting that familiar sterile glow. But as I walked deeper into the aisle, I started to notice something strange. The air was getting colder. Not just a little cool, actually cold, like stepping into a freezer. I could see my breath, and the sounds of the store, the distant chatter of customers, the beeping of checkout scanners, the muzak playing over the intercom, all of it was fading, like someone was slowly turning down the volume. I stopped walking and turned around. The entrance to the aisle, where I'd come in, looked far away. Too far away. I'd only walked maybe 30 feet, but the opening looked like it was at the end of a football field. My stomach dropped. I started walking back toward the entrance, faster now, my cart rattling on the tile. But the entrance wasn't getting closer. I was walking, my legs moving, my cart rolling, but the distance wasn't changing. It was like being on a treadmill, moving but going nowhere. Panic started to creep in. I looked at the shelves on either side of me. The products had changed. They weren't cleaning supplies anymore. They were old, dusty boxes with faded labels, some with no labels at all. I picked one up. It was freezing to the touch, and the cardboard crumbled in my hand, releasing a cloud of dust that smelled like decay. I dropped it and started running. My cart careened into a shelf, knocking over bottles that shattered on the floor. But I didn't stop. My breath came in ragged gasps, clouds of vapor in the frigid air. The lights above me started to flicker, one by one, and I realized with growing horror that the darkness was chasing me, snuffing out each light as I passed beneath it. And then I heard it. Footsteps, behind me, slow, deliberate, uneven, like someone dragging one leg. I didn't want to look back. Every instinct screamed at me not to look back, but I couldn't help it. I glanced over my shoulder. There was something at the far end of the aisle, a figure, shrouded in shadow, moving toward me with jerky, unnatural movements, its limbs bent at wrong angles, and its head gawed. Its head was lolling to the side, like a puppet with cut strings. It was fast, too fast. The distance between us was closing. I screamed and ran harder, my lungs burning, my legs screaming in protest. The aisle stretched on, infinite, impossible. The lights were almost all out now, just one or two flickering ahead of me, barely illuminating the path. I could hear the thing getting closer, its footsteps faster now, accompanied by a wet, rasping breathing sound. And then I tripped. I went down hard, my hands slamming into the cold tile. I rolled onto my back, scrambling backward, and saw it. The figure was right there, maybe 10 feet away, emerging from the darkness. Its face. It didn't have a face. Just a smooth, blank surface where features should have been, and eyes dark, hollow voids that seemed to pull at me, dragging me toward something I couldn't understand. I closed my eyes and screamed, and then I was falling. Not backward, but forward, like I'd been pushed through a barrier. I hit the floor hard, the air knocked out of my lungs. I opened my eyes. I was lying on the tile floor near the pharmacy section, surrounded by normal aisles, normal lights, normal sounds. A couple of employees were running toward me, concern on their faces. "Are you okay? What happened?" I was gasping, shaking, my hands still numb from the cold. "Aisle 7, I managed to say. "There's something in aisle 7. They exchanged glances. One of them, a younger guy with glasses, shook his head. "There is no aisle 7 inches that section. This store only goes up to aisle 6. I stared at him. "What?" "Yeah, the aisles go 1 through 6, then they skip to 8. There's no aisle 7. Never has been." I looked back toward where I'd come from. There was no aisle 7 sign. No entrance. Just a blank wall with a motivational poster about teamwork. I started laughing, a high, broken sound, because I didn't know what else to do. They helped me up, offered me water, asked if I needed to sit down. I left the store in a daze. When I got home, I looked up the store's layout online. He was right. No aisle 7, but I'd been there. I'd walked through it. I'd felt it. And I'd seen what was waiting at the end. Some places exist between the cracks of reality, spaces that shouldn't be there, but are. And sometimes we stumble into them. If you ever find yourself in a place that feels wrong too long, too cold, too quiet, don't keep walking. Turn around. Run. Because some aisles don't have exits, and some things that live in the dark are always hungry. We surround ourselves with replicas of humanity dolls, statues, mannequins. They're meant to be lifeless, harmless, empty vessels that mimic us without thought or feeling. But what happens when one of them isn't empty anymore? This is the story of a mannequin that watched, waited, and moved when no one was looking. I worked at Walmart for 3 years during college, mostly in the clothing department. It was a decent job, folding shirts, organizing racks, helping customers find sizes. Boring, but easy. The only thing I hated was dressing the mannequins. We had about a dozen of them scattered throughout the department, dressed in seasonal outfits to show off new arrivals. Most of them were fine, generic, featureless, harmless. But there was one mannequin that always bothered me. It was a female figure, positioned near the women's activewear section. It had a blank, smooth face like the others, but something about it felt wrong. Its eyes, just smooth plastic ovals, seemed to follow you as you walked past. My coworkers felt it too. We'd joked about it, called it Creepy Linda, but none of us liked being near it. It was a Friday night, around 9:30 p.m., and I was closing the department. The store was still open, but this section was quiet. I was finishing up a display, dressing Creepy Linda in a new yoga outfit. I pulled the old shirt off, and as I did, I could have sworn the mannequin's arm shifted slightly. I froze, staring at it. It was perfectly still. I shook my head, laughing at myself. I was tired, that was all. I dressed it in the new outfit, stepped back to check the display, and turned around to grab some accessories from a nearby rack. I was facing away for maybe 10 seconds. When I turned back, Creepy Linda had moved. It was facing a different direction. It had been looking toward the wall, and now it was facing the aisle. I felt my stomach tighten. "Okay, very funny," I called out. "Whoever moved this, ha ha, you got me." No response. The store was silent except for the distant hum of refrigerators and faint music over the intercom. I was alone in the section. I grabbed the mannequin and turned it back to its original position, my hands shaking slightly. I told myself someone must have bumped it, or maybe I'd moved it without realizing. I finished setting up the display and started cleaning up, trying to ignore the uneasy feeling crawling up my spine. But every time I turned my back, I heard it. A faint, creaking sound, like plastic joints shifting. I spun around. Creepy Linda's arm was raised now, pointing down the aisle behind me, toward the darker, emptier section of the store. I didn't want to look. Every fiber of my being screamed not to look down that aisle, but I did. The lights at the far end were flickering, casting long shadows that seemed to move on their own, and standing at the very end, barely visible in the dim light, was another figure, human-shaped, but too still, too rigid. Another mannequin? But we didn't have any mannequins in that section. I grabbed my cart and walked quickly toward the front of the store, my heart pounding. I radioed my manager. "Hey, Sarah, can you come to the clothing department? Something's weird." "Be there in 5. I waited near the entrance to the section, my eyes locked on Creepy Linda. It hadn't moved again. When Sarah arrived, I explained what had happened. She gave me a skeptical look, but she went over to check. She examined the mannequin, tested the joints, looked around for signs of tampering. "It's fine," she said. "Probably just someone messing with you. You know how the night crew is." But I saw the look in her eyes. She was uneasy too. I left work that night feeling paranoid. But the next morning, Sarah called me. "Can you come in early? I need to show you something." When I arrived, she took me to the security office. She pulled up the footage from the night before, fast-forwarding to the time I'd been in the clothing department. My stomach sank as I watched. On the screen, I could see myself dressing the mannequin, turning away, working on other displays. And every time I turned my back, the mannequin moved. It rotated slowly, almost imperceptibly, its arm lifting, pointing. At one point, its head turned a full 90 degrees to watch me as I walked past. There was no one else in the frame, no one touching it. It was moving on its own. Sarah paused the video. Her face was pale. "This isn't the first time," she said quietly. "Other employees have reported the same thing. We've moved it to different spots, even put it in storage once, but it always comes back, and it always watches." I refused to work in that section again. A month later, I came in for a shift, and Creepy Linda was gone. I asked Sarah what happened to it. She said no one had moved it. No one had ordered it removed. It had just disappeared overnight. The security footage from that night was corrupted, just static and distorted images. But here's the thing. A few weeks after that, I was shopping at a different Walmart across town. I was walking through the clothing section, and I saw it. Creepy Linda. Same mannequin, same blank face, same unsettling presence. It was posed in the activewear section, arm raised, pointing toward the back of the store. I left immediately. I don't shop at Walmart anymore. Some objects absorb more than we realize. Maybe it's the energy of the people around them, or maybe something else finds its way inside, something that doesn't want to be forgotten. If you ever see a mannequin that makes you uneasy, that feels like it's watching you, trust that instinct. Because some things are never as lifeless as they seem. We take for granted that we can leave places whenever we want, walk out the door, get in the car, go home. But what if you couldn't? What if something decided you had to stay? This is the story of a Walmart where the doors locked, the lights flickered, and a voice told us the truth: we were trapped. It was a regular Tuesday afternoon. I'd stopped by Walmart after work to grab some groceries, nothing special, just the usual. The store was busy, filled with families, elderly couples, teenagers wandering the electronics section. The kind of mundane, everyday scene that makes you feel safe. Nothing bad happens at Walmart at 4 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was in the produce section, picking out apples, when the intercom crackled to life. I didn't pay much attention at first, figured it was just an employee making an announcement, maybe a sale or a cleanup request. But the voice that came through wasn't normal. It was low, distorted, like someone speaking through layers of static, and the words made my blood run cold. They're watching you. All of you. You can't leave. I froze, an apple halfway to my cart. Around me, other shoppers stopped too, looking up at the ceiling speakers with confusion and unease. A woman near me muttered, "What the hell?" The voice repeated the message. "They're watching you. All of you. You can't leave." Louder this time, more frantic, the distortion growing worse. A child started crying. An elderly man grabbed his wife's arm, his face pale. The voice repeated it a third time, now almost a scream, the words stretched and twisted. "They're watching you. You can't leave." And then the intercom cut off. For a moment, the entire store was silent. 100 people frozen, staring at nothing, waiting for something else to happen. And then someone near the front of the store shouted, "The doors! The doors won't open!" Panic erupted instantly. People abandoned their carts and ran toward the exits. I followed, my heart racing. The automatic doors were closed, sealed shut. People pounded on the glass, shouting for help. An employee ran over, pressing the manual override button. Nothing. The doors didn't budge. More employees arrived, trying to reassure everyone, grabbing walkies to call for managers. But all the walkies were dead, just static. And underneath the static, that same distorted voice, whispering, "You can't leave." I felt a cold, creeping dread settle over me. This wasn't a prank. This was something else. The lights above us started to flicker, and I noticed the shadows on the walls. They were moving, not swaying like they should in flickering light, but moving independently, stretching and reaching across the tile, crawling toward us. A woman screamed. I turned and saw her pointing at the security cameras mounted near the ceiling. They were all moving, swiveling in perfect unison, tracking us, following us. Every camera in the store was pointed at the crowd near the doors. And then the lights went out. Total darkness. 100 voices screaming, crying, praying. I pulled out my phone, turned on the flashlight, and others did the same. Dozens of beams of light cut through the blackness, illuminating terrified faces and something else. Shapes, moving between the aisles, tall and thin and wrong. They didn't walk, they glided, their movements too smooth, too fast. I grabbed the person next to me, a young guy with a Walmart vest. "What's happening?" I shouted. He was shaking, his eyes wide. "I don't know. This can't be real." The intercom crackled again, and this time the voice was different, calm, almost soothing. "Don't be afraid. We just want to see. We just want to watch." The lights flickered back on, and the shapes were gone. but the feeling remained the suffocating sensation of being watched, studied, like insects under glass. I looked around. People were pressed against the doors, against the walls, as far from the center of the store as they could get. And then, just as suddenly as it started, the doors clicked open. The automatic sensors hummed to life, and the doors slid apart. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then everyone ran, a stampede of panicked shoppers flooding out into the parking lot, tripping over each other, leaving carts and bags and jackets behind. I ran with them, not stopping until I reached my car. I sat there, shaking, watching as employees slowly filtered out, looking just as terrified as the rest of us. Managers stood outside, talking on their phones, their faces pale and drawn. Within an hour, police arrived, but they didn't find anything. No evidence of a break-in, no hacked intercom system, no explanation. The official story was a technical malfunction, a prank by some hackers. Automatic doors failed due to a power surge, but I saw the look in the employees' eyes. They knew this had happened before. Maybe not exactly like this, but something similar. Something that couldn't be explained. I never went back to that Walmart. But sometimes, late at night, I think about that voice. We just want to watch. Who was watching, and why? And are they still there, waiting for the next time the doors lock and the lights go out? We like to believe we're at the top of the food chain, that we're the ones in control. But what if we're not? What if something else is watching, studying, treating us the way we treat animals in a zoo? The next time you're in a crowded store and the lights flicker, pay attention, because you might not be alone, and you might not be allowed to leave.